The wedding of James and Diep unfolded like a fairy tale sculpted out of light, so pristine that even the chandeliers seemed to glow with an otherworldly radiance. A thousand tiny suns shimmered above the ballroom, casting soft gold across the marbled floors. Music drifted through the air like a silk ribbon, elegant and unbroken. Guests whispered admiringly behind champagne glasses as cameras captured every fleeting moment, the glint of crystal, the bloom of roses, and a bride whose smile looked as sweet and flawless as spun sugar. To everyone watching, Diep was the luckiest woman alive, marrying the man who had crossed storms for her, who had once stood alone against the world just to hold her hand. Her sparkling eyes reflected hope, devotion, a future promised in vows and sealed with rings. But beneath that perfect smile, beneath the gentle rise and fall of her breath, something fragile trembled. A truth she dared not let touch the surface. Diep stood dutifully beside James as he introduced her to partners, distant relatives, family friends, voices and compliments flowing in loops around them. His tone carried everything a bride could hope for: warmth, pride, a love he never tried to hide. But each time she met the gaze of someone from his family, especially his mother, a quiet chill slid beneath her ribs. Their smiles were polite but rigid, stretched thin like paper over stone. Cold judgment gleamed behind every lifted eyebrow and every slow, assessing glance. It was as if every relative had come prepared with a silent checklist, hunting for flaws she did not know she possessed. James, lost in joy, noticed none of it. His happiness built a fortress around him, but one she could not enter. When he took her hand in front of the crowd, her fingers were icy. She tightened her grip, hoping he would sense her unease, anchor her to the moment, but he had already turned to greet another guest. A smile still lit his features, unaware of the world crumbling behind hers. Guests cheered. Glasses clinked. Sparkling wine frothed over crystal rims, and Diep, silent, shrinking, barely touched her food. Barely spoke, barely lifted her gaze from the floor. She stood amid hundreds of people, yet felt sealed behind an invisible glass wall, pounding quietly from the inside. The corridor where her smile finally dropped, 155, at one point, overwhelmed, she stepped away. The corridor outside the ballroom was dim and still, a shadowed refuge from the celebration. For a single stolen moment, Diep let her smile fall. Her breath trembled. A weight, something between fear and profound loneliness, pressed against her ribs. She wanted this wedding. She wanted the dream James was living with such radiant joy. But the silent hostility from his family clung to her like a cold hand around her throat. And so, she wiped away the tear that hadn't yet fallen, lifted her chin, retouched her dress, and walked back into the light. Because James was smiling, because he deserved happiness, because no one could know the truth. Not tonight, not on the day she vowed forever. The morning after the wedding should have arrived with comfort, soft sunlight, shared laughter, the warmth of new beginnings. Instead, Diep woke to a silence so thick it felt alive, pressing against her ears. James lay asleep beside her, exhausted from the night's festivities, one arm draped loosely around her waist. In that fragile bubble of warmth, she wished time would pause. She wished the world outside the bedroom door would disappear. But real life waited, and it was not kind. As soon as Diep entered the hallway, she sensed tension twisting like smoke in the air. James's mother, elegant, poised, surgically composed, stood near the kitchen speaking to his aunt in clipped, hushed tones. Their conversation stopped mid-sentence the moment Diep appeared. "Good morning," Diep offered, her voice soft but steady. His mother replied with a thin, immaculate smile, "You're awake. I thought my son married a girl who knows how to rise early." A gentle tone, but the meaning cut like a razor. Diep bowed her head slightly. "I was preparing breakfast for James." "Oh?" The aunt lifted a sculpted eyebrow. "Do you even know what he likes?" A question, simple on the surface, yet delivered with a cruelty more painful than open insult. Diep thought of all the nights James cooked for her, of his laughter when she fumbled chopping vegetables, of the warmth that filled their little kitchen. She knew him better than anyone, but the words stuck deep in her throat. She slipped toward the kitchen in silence, hoping the walls could shield her. They did not. The family's murmurs followed her like shadows. A village girl, really? She won't last long. James will wake up soon and see what she truly is, poor boy. He could have chosen someone better. Her fingers gripped the counter, knuckles white. The same ache, the tight band squeezing her chest at the wedding, returned. She reminded herself again and again of James's kindness, of the promises whispered under starlight. Those memories were threads holding her together. Just barely. James entered the kitchen with messy hair and sleepy eyes, wrapped his arms around her from behind, and kissed her cheek. "Good morning, my wife," he whispered. Her smile lifted, but it was brittle at the edges. Because even in the tenderness of his embrace, she could feel the eyes watching, judging. Waiting, and deep down, she began to fear that she was breaking faster than she could pretend. James noticed the signs long before she could admit them. The forced smile at family dinners, the tremble in her hands when someone corrected her tone or questioned her decisions. Each time he asked, she brushed it off with the same answer. I'm fine, a lie she clung to like armor. On the third night after the wedding, he heard soft, muffled sobs through the balcony door. Under the cover of darkness, she had curled into herself, face buried in her knees, hoping the night would swallow her sound. James's heart shattered. He knelt beside her, voice trembling. Diep. What happened? She shook her head. Nothing. I'm just tired, don't lie to me. Please. Her lips trembled, and the dam inside her chest cracked open. They don't want me here, James, she whispered through broken breaths. Your mother, your aunt, everyone, they look at me like I don't belong. They talk about me behind my back. They think I'm not worthy of you. And I'm trying. I'm trying so hard. James felt something inside him collapse, then harden into something sharp, cold, unyielding. He gathered her into his arms. You should have told me. I didn't want you to choose, she whispered. I didn't want to cause trouble with your family. He cupped her face, his voice a vow. You were my wife, my partner. If anyone hurts you, they hurt me, but both of them knew this truth. His family was not easily moved, and a quiet war had already begun. The next morning, James entered the dining hall with a resolve carved from steel. His mother, Margaret, sat at the head of the table, poised like a queen on a throne of judgment. His aunt and cousin murmured until he stepped inside. Where is your wife? Margaret asked, eyes gleaming. She's resting, James replied. Last night was difficult. If she can't handle simple social expectations, his aunt scoffed, how will she manage this household? James's jaw tightened. She is my wife, not your servant. Margaret lifted her teacup lazily. James, you're letting emotions cloud your judgment. A woman like her, he cut her off sharply. Don't finish that sentence. The entire room froze. You don't have to like her, he continued, voice low and fierce. But you will respect her. His cousin attempted one final protest about Diep being from another world, but James didn't let her finish. He stood and left the room, footsteps echoing with defiance. Upstairs, Diep was braiding little Nay's hair when he entered. She looked up instantly, searching his eyes for clues. He crossed the room in 2 strides and pulled her close. I talked to them. Her body stiffened. You didn't have to. I didn't fight because of you, he murmured. I fought for you. Her eyes shimmered, walls built from humiliation and fear slowly crumbling. You're my wife, he whispered, and if protecting you means standing against the world, I will. Outside their door, the house remained cold, hostile, unchanged. But inside their hearts, something new had taken root. Unity forged in battle, love sharpened by adversity. The war for their happiness had only just begun. The story of Diep and James reminds us that the brightest weddings can hide the deepest wounds. Luxury means nothing when the heart is bruised and unheard. Diep's silent suffering shows that love without protection becomes a burden. Promises without action turn into cages. James's journey reveals a harder truth, that loving someone is not only about joy but also about standing firm when storms rise. Even against the people who raised you, silence, too, is dangerous. Pain left unspoken grows roots and poisons everything. But honesty, raw, trembling, imperfect honesty, is where healing begins. In the end, love is not proven by grand ceremonies or curated perfection. It is proven in quiet acts of loyalty, empathy, and courage. A wedding can be staged, but genuine devotion cannot be faked.